Good evening and welcome to another 31 Days of Horror 2015 segment. This is actually, what is it? It's day 15 technically, though now it would be day 16 because I'm just getting back from Toronto After Dark. This is the first day of Toronto After Dark. It is the 10th anniversary of the festival. I've been going through since the beginning. I've been going, and we are talking about the opening gala this time. It is an anthology film called Tales of Halloween. Now, I'm going to go through the directors involved because there's quite a few of them, because there's quite a few segments. There's no real wraparound, so you don't have to worry about that. These are not going to be in order because I didn't really take notes, but here we go. It's not even going to be by popularity or alphabetical. I'm just going to pick names. First up is the segment, The Night Billy Raised Hell. I'm trying to think. I don't even remember which one that was, but oh my god, there was just so many. That was directed by Darren Lynn Bousman, and you may or may not remember Darren Lynn Bousman as the director of Saw 2, Saw 3, Saw 4, and Repo the Genetic Opera, as well as, Mother's Day and 666 The Prophecy. He's done quite a few things, so you should know that name. Next up was Axel Carolyn for the segment called Grim Grinning Ghost. Say that 3 times fast. You really wouldn't know her from anything. I think she was an actor and a bunch of stuff, but she hasn't really done a lot of directing. Next up is Adam Girash, who did the segment called Trick. Trick was the one about the devil, and doing some tricks on Halloween, trick or treat. Well, he, it's a lot of chaos and such, and I'm pretty sure that was Trick. Adam, you may know from the 2008 film Autopsy. He directed Night of the Demons, Fertile Ground, and Fractures, for all of you genre fans out there. Next up would be the segment This Means War, directed by Andrew Cash, which is essentially 2 neighbors across the street from each other who are doing Halloween displays and kind of trying to outdo each other type thing, and it gets to the point where one gets fed up and they start fisticuffing. Unfortunately, I've never heard of Andrew Cash. I didn't recognize anything he'd ever done before. Next up is a segment called Bad Seed. I believe this was the ending segment of the film, about a killer pumpkin, directed by Neil Marshall, probably the biggest director in this film. You'll know him from Dog Soldiers, Centurion, Doomsday, The Descent, etc., etc. I really, really, really enjoy his films, as long as he stays away from continually doing the Centurion type films. It was alright, it just wasn't great, not compared to what he had before. Next up, from Lucky Mckee, who you'll know from All Cheerleaders All Cheerleaders Die. Not All Cheerleaders Must Die. All Cheerleaders Die, The Woman, The Woods, and the one that essentially got him his fame, May. And he does a segment called Ding Dong. Ding Dong. What was Ding Dong? I don't remember what Ding Dong was. Moving on, we get Mike Mendez, who you'll maybe know from the movie Killers or Bimbo Movie Bash, The Grave Dancers, The Convent, and a Lavalantula, if you're into that type of film. And then another a film that was previously shown at Toronto After Dark, A Big Ass Spider. And he does a segment called Friday the 31st, which starts off as sort of like a spoof of Friday the 13th, and then moves into Aliens and has some Evil Dead spoofing going on. Honestly, I really enjoyed it. It was funny. It was gory. It was, like the homages going on. A lot of, nods here and there to different things. And that was really well done. Next up was the first segment in the movie, and that's Sweet Tooth, about essentially it's sort of like a, what do you call them? Campfire tale type thing of a guy, who goes around during Halloween because he's got, an insatiable sweet tooth, and if you don't leave him any candy, he will take the candy that you've eaten directly out of your stomach. And that was directed by Dave Parker, who is a Full Moon alumnus. He did Bimbo Movie Bash, Craw the Sea Monster, and The Dead Hate the Living. And if you don't know Full Moon, then you may know him from The Hills Run Red, which a lot of people, was direct to video. A lot of people kind of really like and tend to promote. And then he also did The Dead Reborn. Next up was an interesting little thing. It was comedic. A lot of these segments have been comedic. It's directed by Ryan Schifrin, who never heard of him, never seen any, I don't think he's really done anything. And that's The Ransom of Rusty Rex, about a kidnapping that goes wrong. Next segment was called This Means War. Oh, I guess that segment had two directors. So John Skip also directed that one. Again, I don't know who he is. And finally, there is the segment The Weak and the Wicked. I think that was probably my least favorite, if it's the one I'm thinking it is. About a... it's I don't know. I don't even know how you describe it. But it was directed by Paul Solet, who directed the film which also showed at Toronto After Dark, and that is the film Grace. Tales of Halloween. Like I said, it's an anthology film. It's very... It really caters to a wide, popular audience. Think Trick or Treat, which is a cult must-watch during Halloween. Think of that kind of Halloween anthology type thing, but instead of being essentially directed by one, short amount of people involved in it, with, a whole bunch of segments that really do tie together. Tales of Halloween is sort of loosely tied together. It's all, oddly enough, despite having so many directors, they all had a very similar appearance. And there was definitely a very similar feel to all of these segments. And the idea is that they're all taking place in the same sort of like suburb, little location type thing, whether it be up the street, across, the way, or whatever, around the corner. They're all roughly in the same area. Some of them have the same, characters and actors from other segments show up in them. Others sort of mention things that have happened in other segments. So there is some sort of tie together there, but all in all, they aren't really tied together like a Trick or Treat, which was one of the reasons why people really like Trick or Treat. But Tales of Halloween, at least there is some connection between the films as a whole. It's not just a bunch of little short films by themselves, even though it is a bunch of short films by themselves. There is some correlation between them, even if it's only minute. There's a lot of comedy. There's a few jump scares and such, because there's so many of them. And I mean, the film only has a total runtime of an hour and a half. So it's you can imagine, like, it's got what, like, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's got like 8 or 9 type segments, so you do the math. Essentially, running about 10 minutes, 10-15 minutes each. There is a lot of gore. There is some good physical effects going on here. There is some CG in some of them. Not really the greatest CG, but it works for this type of film. Some of the segments I really enjoyed. Some of the other ones I thought had a good idea, but didn't really. The follow through wasn't there, and then other ones I was just like, I'm not really feeling this. But as a whole, I would actually recommend Tales of Halloween. It's if you're looking for some something to add to your regular Halloween viewing, besides Halloween and Trick or Treat, and you wanted to throw something else in there to make a regular viewing, Tales of Halloween isn't a bad choice. The segments are different enough to, with all the different directors and such, and different stories, very different stories, to not feel like it's one big long movie of the same thing over and over again. So that's nice. Like I said, there's very different genres or subject matters happening in this film, whether it be witches or ghosts or aliens, or whatever, serial killers, like there's a whole bunch of things, and then there's some that just don't have a like the two neighbors. There's no creature or evil in that segment. It's literally two neighbors who just get fed up, I guess. And so like I said, it's not. Some people are going to really, really enjoy this. Some people are going to find it a little meh. But that being said, I'd give it a 2.5 to a 3 out of 5 if I was going to give it a rating like that. And like I said, I'd recommend it. I think it has a wide appeal. And some people will find some elements scary, some people will find some elements funny, some people will find some elements gross, and there's a good mixture all around. So, when it comes to horror and Halloween, it's not. I think the only thing that was really over the top, there was a few gore moments that were maybe up here in level, but outside of that, like I said, funny, has funny moments, lighthearted. It's really worth watching. The one thing I really loved about it, was the title sequence. It's all sort of like I'm guessing it was stop motion animation to put it together, and it sort of uses like a Google Earth type thing to move around, like the the neighborhood. But it's almost like it's drawn. Or maybe cutouts and stuff, because it moves around and you see it from that angle, and then some certain things, cars might move on the streets and stuff like that. And then when you get to each segment, because it does do all the segments, names and directors during the opening title sequence, when it gets to each, like segment, it actually has sort of like a pop-up book effect where, it's sort of like cutout paper that comes up and sort of shows what gives you an idea of what the subject matter might be in that particular segment, but it doesn't really give anything away. It might show some, actors or elements of the film, of that segment, but it doesn't really do a story. It's kind of, like I said, a pop-up book, so it's there. It is the image. It's maybe a little bit of movement, but not a lot. And I really dug it. I thought it was so well done. Honestly, I was thinking, well, you know what? If I ever, if I ever made a movie, I might want to get this. Whoever, the guy who did it, I don't know if I made note of it when I was looking at the credits, but I didn't write it down. So let's see if I can figure it out. Let's see if it's here. No, it's not. Well, there's a stop motion animator. I don't know if it's him. See, there's a problem. There's so many people involved because of all the different, segments and such that, yeah, I don't know who it was. Unfortunately. Yeah. So, oh well. I'll just have to get it and look him up because, yeah, I really liked what he did. I really enjoyed the opening title sequences. And you know what? That's odd. That's odd. Sometimes a title sequence can really sort of uplift an otherwise bad film, at least in my opinion. This isn't necessarily the case with Tales of Halloween. Like I said, it's a decent film. It has a lot of good. But it's not necessarily going to be, not every segment is going to be, is going to please everybody. With this many segments, that's a given. I mean, with anthology films in general, you find that, right? Some segments that people will really like, other segments they won't, and then vice versa for, their neighbor or their best friend. They may have completely different thoughts about the film or the segments. So, yeah. Wow. And to boot, oddly enough, coming into the first movie, Toronto After Dark, 10th anniversary, and what are they handing out? Free minifigure from Lego. This is the Monster series. I think this is series 9? I don't know. Series 14. I was way off. But yeah, I was kind of hoping, people would get it and they wouldn't want it and they might leave it, but I didn't see anybody leaving the minifigure, so yeah, it looks like I'm going to have to buy all the other 15 guys. So yeah, that was unexpected. I didn't know that was going to happen. Awesome. A bonus, though it doesn't really affect my thoughts of the movie. Anyways, more 31 Days of Horror coverage and the Toronto After Dark Film Festival coming up. Stay tuned. Until next video, take care and have a good one.